Imagine this. You're sitting in a beautiful, uh, sun-drenched park,
Sounds lovely.
right? It's one of those freakishly hot autumn days, the kind where summer briefly returns, and the heat feels almost, like, heavy.
Yeah, I know exactly the kind of day you mean.
So you've just treated yourself to a massive scoop of premium pistachio ice cream. We're talking the really good stuff, a brand like Hackney Gelato.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you get distracted for a few minutes, maybe watching people on the swings or, like, checking a message on your phone. And when you look back down at your hand, you realize something completely bizarre is happening.
Uh-oh.
The ice cream isn't melting in the heat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just sitting there, perfectly spherical. But the outside of the tub is actually warm to the touch. So you take a hesitant spoonful, and instead of cold, melting cream, you're eating this tepid gelatinous foam.
That is a profoundly unsettling image. I mean, you expect the fundamental physics of food to behave a certain way, right? Ice melts when it's hot. So when it doesn't, your brain immediately signals that what you are holding is, well, fundamentally different from what you thought it was.
Right. Because, according to the research we are looking at today, it's not actually food anymore.
No, it really isn't.
Welcome to this deep dive. Today we are exploring a massive stack of sources centered around Chris Van Tulleken's incredibly eye-opening book, Ultra-Processed People.
It's such a fascinating read.
It really is. The mission of this deep dive is to explore the startling reality that the majority of what you and I consume on a daily basis is, well, it's actually highly engineered industrial substance.
Yeah, and that's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people.
For sure. So we're going to unpack what ultra-processed food, or UPF, really is, how it completely subverts millions of years of human evolution, and, why it feels so impossibly hard to stop eating it. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with that weird non-melting ice cream. What exactly is going on at a chemical level there?
So, to understand the non-melting ice cream, we really have to look closely at the ingredient list. If you flip that tub of premium gelato around, you won't just see, like, milk, cream, sugar, and pistachios.
Which is what you'd expect, right?
Exactly. But instead, you are going to see a parade of industrial additives. Things like locust bean gum, guar gum, carrageenan, and emulsifiers like mono and diglycerides of fatty acids.
It sounds like a chemistry lab.
It essentially is. And according to food industry insiders, like this biochemist named Paul Hart cited in our sources, these ingredients exist for one primary reason, and that is to save money.
Save money how? I mean, because adding more ingredients, especially complex chemical-sounding ones, sounds like it would cost the manufacturer more, not less.
You would think so, but it's really all about surviving the modern supply chain. You see, traditional ice cream is incredibly delicate. Structurally, it's this complex foam made of ice crystals, fat globules, and air.
Okay, that makes sense.
So if it warms up even slightly during transport, like moving from the factory freezer to a truck, then to a regional warehouse, then to the supermarket, and finally to your home, those microscopic ice crystals melt.
Right.
And when they freeze again, they reform as these sharp, icy shards. Customers absolutely hate that gritty texture.
Oh, yeah, freezer burn texture is the worst.
Exactly. So the industry uses gums like xanthan gum, and xanthan gum is quite literally a slime produced by bacteria to help them cling to surfaces.
Wait, bacterial slime.
Yeah.
You're kidding.
I wish I was. These gums, combined with emulsifiers, basically bind the water and fat molecules together into a rigid structure. They hold the water perfectly in place, which stops those ice crystals from ever forming or growing.
Wow.
Yeah, it allows the ice cream to endure fluctuating temperatures nationwide,
Right.
saving massive amounts on specialized refrigeration and rapid transport costs.
So they are essentially embalming the food so it can survive a cross-country road trip.
That is a brutally accurate way to put it.
And the sources point out this is part of a broader concept called molecular replacement, right? Where traditional expensive agricultural ingredients are swapped out for chemical ones. Think of these UPF ingredients like cheap Hollywood body doubles.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, like the industry doesn't want to pay the A-list actor real butter, real cream, or real eggs, so they hire a cheap stunt double like modified starch or xanthan gum. They slap some chemical makeup on it, throw it in the scene, and just hope your taste buds don't notice the difference.
What's fascinating here is that your body double analogy perfectly describes the evolutionary arms race happening in our modern food ecosystem. But this arms race isn't driven by a biological need for energy. It's an ecosystem powered entirely by money.
Powered by money, right?
In this environment, humans are essentially the prey. Corporations are locked in this fierce competition to extract your money using the cheapest possible molecules.
So they aren't even starting with real food.
No, they take heavily subsidized commodity crops like corn and soy, break them down into cheap molecular fractions, chemically modify them, and then reassemble them into something that merely mimics food.
And what's crazy is that this isn't even a new trick. The sources trace this all the way back to 1869.
Yes, the Napoleon story.
Right. Napoleon III actually offered a cash prize to anyone who could invent a cheap butter substitute to feed his armies and the lower classes.
Yeah, and the prize was won by a French chemist named Hippolyte Mejmourier. He created something called oleomargarine.
Oleomargarine. Sounds appetizing.
Well, the process was incredibly industrial for the time. He was rendering cheap beef fat, digesting it with sheet stomach enzymes, washing it with acid, and then, get this, mixing it with cow udder tissue.
Oh my God. That is entirely unappetizing.
Yeah, it sounds awful, but it was really the birth of the ultra process. This eventually evolved into products like Crisco.
Oh, Crisco. My grandma used to use that for everything.
Right. And the industry realized they could make it using cottonseed oil, which at the time was quite literally considered toxic waste.
Toxic waste.
Yeah, it contained a compound known to reduce male fertility. But by using high pressure, heat, and a process called RBD, which stands for refined, bleached, and deodorized, they stripped out the toxins, the foul smell, and the dark color.
Wow.
The chemical bleaching left behind this blank, cheap, solid fat.
It's wild to think that shortening was essentially the first mass-produced UPF.
Yeah.
But if these industrial body doubles are everywhere now, how do we actually draw a line?
That's the challenge.
Right. Like, how do scientists define what is and isn't bad food? Because if we just look at the back of a box, it feels like the goalposts for what is healthy keep moving every decade.
That brings us to a Brazilian researcher named Carlos Monteiro. In the early 2000s, Monteiro noticed this baffling paradox in Brazil.
Okay, what kind of paradox?
Well, public health data showed that Brazilians were buying significantly less sugar and less cooking oil at the grocery store, which, historically, were the two things everyone blamed for weight gain.
Right.
And yet, obesity rates across the country were skyrocketing.
So if they're buying less raw sugar and oil, where were the extra calories coming from?
They were coming from UPF. Because people had largely stopped cooking traditional meals like rice and beans. Instead, they were buying pre-made, highly marketed, industrially formulated products that already had those fats and sugars engineered into them.
Oh, I see.
To study this properly, Monteiro's team created the No-VA classification system. It categorizes food into 4 groups based not on their nutritional content, but on the extent and purpose of their processing.
The purpose. Okay.
Yeah. Group 4 is ultra-processed food, and the definition really hinges on that purpose. UPF is defined as formulations of industrial ingredients designed to create highly profitable, hyper-palatable products that displace freshly prepared whole foods.
So it's defined by its economic intent just as much as its chemical makeup. And to test if this processing actually matters, our sources outline a landmark clinical trial conducted by Kevin Hall at the National Institutes of Health. And, I mean, this study is really the smoking gun of the whole deep dive.
Oh, absolutely. It changed everything.
He literally housed volunteers in a clinical center for a month. Half got a UPF diet, half got an unprocessed diet. But here is the critical detail. He perfectly matched both diets for fat, salt, sugar, and fiber.
That part is crucial.
Right. They had the exact same macronutritional profile.
Exactly. Why matching the macros is so vital scientifically is because it isolates the processing itself as the only variable. The participants were allowed to eat as much or as little as they wanted on both diets.
And the results?
The results were staggering. When people were on the UPF diet, they naturally overate by about 500 calories a day and gained weight.
500 extra calories without even trying.
Yeah. But when those exact same people switched to the unprocessed diet, they naturally ate less and lost weight. It proved that the nutritional profile, like the specific amounts of fat and sugar, wasn't the sole driver. There is something inherent in the physical and chemical processing itself that drives us to overconsume.
And the epidemiological fallout of that overconsumption is massive.
Oh, yeah.
The sources detail a review by a researcher named Sam Tulleken who looked at 250 different academic papers. And when you control for everything else, poverty, smoking, even the sugar and fat content, a diet high in UPF, is linked to dose-dependent increases in cancer, cardiovascular disease, and a terrifying 25% increased risk of dementia.
It's sobering data.
It really is. Now, I do want to make it clear to the listener that we are just reporting on the sources here, and it is worth noting that there is pushback on it.
Yeah, there is.
Scientists tied to the food industry,
Yeah.
specifically researchers from companies like Nestlé and the Kerry Group, argue that the NOVA definition is just too vague to be useful for dietary guidance.
That is their stance, yes.
And I actually have to push back a little bit here, too. When we say ultra-processed food, isn't that just a fancy academic term for junk food? Like, we all know Doritos and Twinkies are bad for us. Do we really need a whole new scientific category to tell us that a soda is unhealthy?
This raises an important question, and the answer is a resounding no. UPF is absolutely not just a synonym for junk food.
Really? How so?
Because of the way we process ingredients globally now, even foods heavily marketed as organic, vegan, or low-fat diet foods can be UPF if they contain those industrial emulsifiers and modified starches we talked about earlier.
Oh, I see.
Think about a pizza. A traditional pizza from your local pizzeria made with just flour, water, yeast, tomatoes, and mozzarella is not UPF. It's rich, sure, but it's whole food.
Right.
But a supermarket diet pizza, which might actually have the exact same number of calories, fat, and carbs, is UPF.
Because of the ingredients.
Yes. It uses chemical preservatives, dough conditioners, and modified starches to survive sitting in a freezer for 6 months. It's the industrial processing and the molecular replacement that separates them, not the calorie count.
Okay, so Kevin Hall's study proved that this industrial processing physically makes us overeat by 500 calories a day.
Yeah.
But why?
That is the big question.
Like, how does a bowl of chocolate cereal or a diet microwave meal actually hack our internal hardware to make us eat more?
To understand the why, we have to zoom way out and look at the deep evolutionary history of eating. The sources frame this as the 3 ages of eating.
Okay, walk me through them.
Sure. The first age began billions of years ago when single-celled organisms essentially ate rocks and metal-like bacteria feeding on iron from underwater volcanoes.
Wow.
The second age began when living things started eating other living things. Humans have been in the second age for about 2 million years, using fire and basic processing, like grinding wheat, to survive on plants and animals.
That makes sense. And the third age?
The third age, which we are in now, only started roughly with the invention of the synthetic sweetener saccharin in 1879. We are now eating synthetic molecules our bodies have zero evolutionary memory of.
I know our second age biology is incredibly precise when it comes to regulating weight, but how did scientists actually figure out that the body has an internal feedback loop for fullness?
It goes back to a rather horrifying yet fascinating experiment from 1959 by a physiologist named G.R. Hervey. He took rats and surgically sewed them together so they shared a single blood supply.
Wait, he literally sewed them together?
Yes, they are called parabiotic pairs.
That sounds brutal.
It was. He then selectively damaged the appetite center in the brain of one rat. Predictably, that rat ate uncontrollably and became obese.
Okay.
But the other rat, whose brain was perfectly fine, actually stopped eating entirely and starved.
Just starved, even with food right there.
Yes. Because they shared a circulatory system, it proved that the obese rat's expanding fat tissue was pumping a massive chemical signal into their shared blood. A hormone we now know is leptin screaming to the brain, "We have enough fat, stop eating!"
Oh, wow.
The healthy rat's brain received that signal and shut down its appetite. It was the absolute proof of an internal weight control feedback loop.
That is wild. So our bodies are constantly chattering internally.
Precisely. Your gut, your fat tissue, your liver, they all send hormonal signals to your brain to regulate your energy intake perfectly. And humans possess a profound instinctual ability to use those signals to self-regulate our nutrition, provided we are eating whole foods.
Right.
There is an incredible historical study from 1928 by a pediatrician named Clara Davis. She took a group of newly weaned infants and just let them intuitively choose what to eat from a tray of 34 whole unprocessed foods.
Like what kind of foods?
Meats, vegetables, bone marrow, milk, no purees, no added flavors.
And the babies didn't just eat the sweetest fruits all day. The sources say they went on these weird food jags, eating handfuls of raw beef or just spinach for days, but over time their overall nutritional profiles were completely flawless.
Yes, they balanced it out perfectly over the weeks.
There was even one baby who arrived with a severe case of rickets, which is a bone disease caused by vitamin D deficiency. Clara Davis offered him a small glass of cod liver oil, which tastes completely awful.
Awful, yeah.
But the baby naturally chose to drink it, irregularly, till his bones completely healed. Then he never touched it again. His body somehow knew exactly what it needed to cure itself. Here's where it gets really interesting now.
Yeah.
If a baby in 1928 could intuitively cure its own bone disease just by listening to its gut, why does my brain tell me to eat an entire family-sized bag of Doritos when I know I'm not even physically hungry?
Because UPF completely breaks that ancient communication system. Let's look at exactly how it does this physically. Kevin Hall developed a theory that explains the energy balance model. When you eat whole foods, it's like your digestive system is trying to put together a 1,000-piece puzzle. It takes time, energy, and physical effort for your stomach and enzymes to break down complex food matrices.
Right, digesting a steak takes work.
Exactly. As your stomach physically expands to hold this bulk, stretch receptors in your gut send signals up your vagus nerve to your brain saying, "We are getting full."
But with UPF, you're getting a puzzle that comes pre-assembled in the box.
Exactly. UPF is physically so soft, it's essentially pre-chewed by factory machinery and held together by those artificial emulsifiers we discussed. It dissolves and absorbs into your bloodstream almost instantly.
So it hits you all at once.
Yes. Because it is so calorically dense per gram, you are consuming massive amounts of energy at a rate much faster than your gut's physical stretch receptors can register. It entirely bypasses the evolutionary neuroendocrine signals that normally tell us we are full. The communication line between your gut and your brain is effectively silenced by the sheer density and speed of the synthetic calories.
So the system just short circuits.
Yes. Kevin Hall uses a great analogy for this. Imagine your body's regulatory system is like a house in Northern California. It has a small heater and a thermostat perfectly calibrated for mild winters.
Okay, nice and temperate.
Right. The temperature drops a bit, the heater kicks on, the house stays comfortable. That's your body eating traditional foods. Now imagine picking that house up and dropping it in Edmonton, Canada, in the dead of winter.
Oh, man. The heater's going to run constantly, but the house will still be freezing because the environment just way too extreme for the hardware it was built with.
Precisely. UPF is that extreme environment. Your thermostat is broken.
That makes so much physical sense. But if the processing itself is the problem, why have we spent the last 40 years pointing the finger everywhere else? We constantly blame weight gain purely on tweaking individual nutrients like carbs or sugar, or we treat it as an individual moral failure like a lack of exercise.
It's because of a deeply ingrained concept called nutritionism, which is the tendency to reduce the value of food purely to its isolated chemical components, fat, carbs, vitamins, while completely ignoring the physical structure of the food.
Okay.
This reductive thinking gave rise to theories like the carbohydrate insulin model, heavily popularized by journalists like Gary Taubes.
I remember that trend.
Yeah, the theory was that eating carbohydrates spikes your insulin, and insulin acts like a fat storage switch, locking away calories and making you unnaturally hungry. Taubes argued that if you cut carbs, your insulin drops and your body magically burns more fat.
But Kevin Hall tested that too, right? Why did that theory fall apart when actually put under the microscope?
Because it ignored the thermodynamic reality of the human body. In highly controlled lab settings where participants lived in metabolic wards, Hall proved that when you strictly match the number of calories, dropping carbohydrates and lowering insulin does not result in burning more body fat.
Really?
Yeah. Human metabolism adapts to the calorie sources it is given. A calorie of fat and a calorie of carb behave similarly in terms of total energy expenditure. You can't cheat the basic physics of energy balance just by manipulating insulin.
Okay, so the scientific consensus shows the carbohydrate insulin model is too simplistic. But that absolutely does not mean sugar is harmless.
Oh, not at all.
The sources highlight that sugar's real harms are twofold. First, it drives rampant overconsumption. There's a great example. If you give a child a bowl of plain, unsweetened Rice Krispies, they might eat half and get bored.
Right, it's pretty bland.
But if you swap a spoonful of cereal for a spoonful of sugar, they will devour the whole bowl and ask for seconds. Sugar overrides those satiety signals. Second, the liquid sugars and acids in UPF drinks are driving a pediatric catastrophe of tooth decay.
Yes, the dental statistics are truly grim.
So if tweaking our macros like carbs and sugar isn't the magic fix we thought it was, what about the other side of the equation? We're constantly told that the real reason we're gaining weight as a society is simply that we've become lazy. Like, just eat less and move more.
Right, the classic advice.
There's a researcher mentioned in the sources, Christopher Snowdon, who made a massive claim that British calorie intake has actually fallen by 21% since the 1970s, but weight has gone up. So logically, he argues, we must just not be exercising enough.
It sounds like a logical deduction on the surface, but the data he relied on was fundamentally flawed. The idea that an entire population is eating 21% less energy, but still gaining weight, defies the laws of physics.
So how do they prove him wrong?
To uncover the real truth, scientists utilize something called doubly labeled water studies. This is a brilliant scientific technique where participants drink water containing heavy, traceable, non-radioactive isotopes of hydrogen and oxygen.
Non-radioactive, thankfully.
Yes, very important distinction. As the body burns calories, it produces carbon dioxide and water. By measuring how quickly those heavy isotopes leave the body in urine over a couple of weeks, scientists can calculate exactly how much energy a person is burning with incredible precision.
And what did the heavy water actually show about our metabolism today?
It showed that people today are burning roughly 2,500 calories a day, exactly as expected. Our metabolisms haven't slowed down, and our total energy expenditure is largely unchanged from previous generations.
So where did Snowden get it so wrong?
The massive discrepancy Snowden found came from relying on dietary surveys. When you compare the precise doubly labeled water data to this self-reported survey data, it turns out people are drastically underreporting their calorie intake.
Which makes total sense when you think about it. I mean, how many times have you grabbed a handful of chips from the pantry while working or finished off your kid's fries and just not mentally registered as a meal?
Oh, all the time.
Multiply that invisible snacking by millions of people. They aren't eating less, they just aren't admitting or perhaps not even realizing how much they are actually consuming in a UPF environment.
Exactly. The lack of exercise argument is a myth used to deflect from the food environment.
Blaming a lack of exercise for the obesity crisis is like looking at a sinking ship and blaming the passengers for not bailing water fast enough, rather than looking at the giant hole the iceberg just ripped in the hull. You simply cannot out-exercise a food environment that is chemically force-feeding you 500 extra calories a day.
That is a highly accurate analogy. And to truly illustrate the ultimate extreme logic of viewing food as just interchangeable chemical calories, rather than something grounded in biology and culture, the sources recount a chilling historical event.
Oh, the World War II story.
Yes. During World War II, a German chemist named Arthur Imhausen spearheaded a project to create Speisefett, or coal butter. Germany was short on dietary fat, so Imhausen's company took paraffin waste, which is a toxic byproduct of turning coal into liquid fuel, and chemically converted it into edible synthetic fatty acids.
They literally made butter out of coal waste.
They did.
And they flavored it with diacetyl, which is the exact same chemical they use in microwave popcorn today to make it taste authentic.
Yes. This coal butter was approved as the first entirely synthetic food after being tested on thousands of concentration camp prisoners. It was then used to feed Nazi U-boat crews.
That is incredibly dark.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, while that specific historical context is an undeniable atrocity, the underlying economic mechanism at play is what matters to our discussion of UPF today.
Right, because we're still just replacing real food with fake food.
Exactly. Coal butter encapsulates the ultimate industrial logic, stripping food of all cultural, historical, and evolutionary meaning until it is reduced to nothing more than cheap technical fuel. That exact same economic mechanism replacing real, expensive agricultural food with cheap synthetic chemistry remains the fundamental blueprint of today's ultra-processed food system.
It just turns us into engines that need to be fueled as cheaply as possible. Which brings us all back directly to you listening to this. The next time you walk down a grocery store aisle, looking at the thousands of brightly colored boxes, realize that you aren't just looking at food choices.
No, you're not.
You are navigating a highly engineered ecosystem. These products are explicitly designed, chemically and physically, to bypass your body's ancient, hardwired satiety signals. If you find yourself finishing a bag of snacks when you swore you'd only have a handful, you aren't lacking willpower.
Yeah.
You're playing a rigged game against a multi-billion-dollar industrial chemistry complex.
That is the core realization. The system is operating exactly as designed.
So what does this all mean? Where does this leave us as we try to navigate the modern world and feed ourselves?
Well, I want to leave you with a rather chilling concept drawn directly from our sources. In 1949, a scientist named Hans Kraut wrote a paper defending the continued research and production of that synthetic coal butter we just talked about.
Okay.
His argument was that heavy industry workers simply couldn't take in enough natural calories fast enough to sustain their labor. He proposed that highly dense synthetic fat was a necessity of modern life so that workers wouldn't need a rest pause for a full meal.
Wow. So they literally saw humans as factory machines that just needed their fuel tanks topped up without stopping the assembly line.
Exactly. And it forces us to ponder a profound question about our current food environment. What if the ultimate goal of the modern UPF diet, the meal deals eaten at our desks, the highly engineered protein bars, the liquid meal replacements we chug on our commutes, isn't actually about nourishing us at all?
What is it about?
What if it is simply about reducing the time we spend eating so that we can spend more time working?
That completely reframes the entire concept of modern convenience. Not saving us time so we can enjoy our lives. It's saving us time so we can stay on the clock. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into these sources. Next time you're sitting in the park with a scoop of ice cream, do yourself a favor, make sure it actually melts. See you next time.